Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Unit 6, which deals with discovery and invention. So let's see what the contents are today. Today we will watch and understand a video about China's man-made river and analyze advantages and disadvantages, and we will write an introductory paragraph. Okay, let's check those out today. Now, let's watch this video and take notes.
History is filled with stories of humans overcoming obstacles through discovery and invention. Take an enormous country like China. What do you do when most of your people live in the north, in cities like Beijing, but most of your water is in the south? You build an artificial river to bring water from the south to the north. This river will be about 750 miles long when it is finished in 2030. And this is it, a giant raised canal or aqueduct. One of the largest engineering projects in the world. Chinese workers and engineers are building the river piece by piece in separate sections. Each section starts as a metal framework. A team of 20 people build the metal frame. Then the concrete is added. Finally, the section is moved into place using one of the world's most powerful cranes. Each section weighs 1,200 tons, more than 3 commercial airplanes. This woman operates the crane. It's a very important job, and it takes great skill. She must work very carefully so that each section of the artificial river is in the perfect position. The water will flow north to Beijing without using any pumps. So the end of each section must be exactly 1 centimeter lower than the other end. When the river is finished and operating in 2030, the water from the south will reach millions of Chinese people in the north.
Okay, so we've watched the video about the man-made river in China, and now let's look at these discussion questions. Did this remind you of any other large engineering projects which have helped people to solve a problem? A couple of things came up in my mind. One was the Panama Canal. So that was one major engineering projects. And another one was, the Hoover Dam, a big dam in the southern part of America, and that provided a lot of electricity to people around this area in the desert, and it's still working today. So the one that was really interesting to me and kind of reminded me of this Chinese man-made river was the Panama Canal. And the story behind the Panama Canal was pretty interesting. So back then, they used boats a lot to move things around. and they didn't have airplanes back then. And so they needed a good way to move things from here to here. So as you know, America is such a big country, and it was very difficult to get across because there's a lot of mountains in the middle, and it gets really cold and snowy, and it's almost impossible to go through at some times of the year. So what they were doing is they would have a boat go around, and it would go down to South America and then come back up. And that was a really hard journey to make because once you get down here, there's a lot of storms and stuff down there. It gets really cold too. So what they wanted to do was there's a narrow strip of land here between the countries of Panama and Colombia, and so they wanted to increase this. There was a little small waterway through here, but they wanted to make it bigger so boats could go through. And then that way, they could save the journey there. And so interesting fact was that the first people who tried were the French. So France was the first country to try, and they failed. And the interesting reasons for the failure were that people were dying of diseases, and they didn't know why. But if you can imagine a very hot, humid country, what is the problem they might have? Maybe mosquitoes? And mosquitoes can carry many diseases. So people were dying. So what happened was when the Americans decided to take over this project, they ended up killing the mosquitoes and therefore saving lives, and then people could continue to work healthily on the project, and they weren't getting sick and dying. So yeah, actually in the process I read quite a few people actually died, which is really tragic, but eventually they did accomplish their goal. And so it wasn't only, if you think about it, everything's connected. It's not just engineering, but it's also medical things as well. So if we solve the medical problems, we can also work better and be healthy. So yeah, so that's how that project started. I do have a short video. Their explanation is probably better than mine. I can show it to you now.
It has been 100 years since the first ship sailed through the Panama Canal. In 1881, France began what would become one of the most challenging engineering projects ever undertaken. But disease plagued the French workforce, and up to a third of workers fell ill. After almost a decade, work ground to a halt. The canal was sold to the US 15 years later. The French suffered a considerable financial loss. But by the dawn of the 20th century, medical knowledge was finally capable of controlling outbreaks of tropical disease. The Americans opted for a new elevated lock system which would hoist ships above sea level. Upon completion, the canal had cost a massive $639 million, enough to build 85 Titanics. But after 33 years of construction, the canal had claimed the lives of more than 25,000 people, more than three-quarters of these under French control. That's 500 deaths for every mile of canal. And some believe this toll to be even higher. It was a colossal achievement. A journey from the west coast of America to Europe was cut virtually in half, and from Shanghai to New York by 14%. Two foreign nations were responsible for its construction, but the canal was finally handed over to Panama in 1999. Uniting two oceans for the first time, the canal has earned its place in history as one of the 7 wonders of the modern world.
Okay, so the next question is, are there any problems in your city or country which engineering could solve? For example, the building of a new bridge or underground railway system. Discuss the problems and some possible solutions. Well, for me, I live in Korea, in Seoul, Korea, and to be honest, I feel like the engineering here is really good. Um, for example, the subway is great. The train system is great. The highways are pretty good. Like I don't really feel uncomfortable getting around in Korea. Um, for me, I can't really think of anything. Um, and everything's pretty well, made for pedestrians. Pedestrians are people who are walking, and it's made pretty good for cars and commuters and everything. So, not a lot that needs to be done, I think, in Korea. I think it's pretty well developed as far as engineering goes. Um, but for where I come from, my hometown, I feel like there's a lot of problems. Because it's a medium sized, small medium sized city, and the name of my city is Omaha, and if you count all the areas around Omaha, it probably equals to around 1 million, I think. So it is a big city, but we don't really have any public transportation. So if you don't have a car, you're just out of luck, basically. Like, good luck to you if you don't have a car, because it's a big city. It's sprawling. You can't walk anywhere. So walking's impossible. Riding a bicycle's impossible. If you don't have a car, good luck to you, because you won't be able to go to school. You won't be able to have a job, etc., etc. You won't be able to meet your friends. Yeah, you're not gonna have a life at all. You can't even and you wouldn't even be able to go to the grocery store. So, like, try walking to the grocery store when it's 5 kilometers away or something. It's almost impossible. So, for me, I wish that there were more public transportation options. And one proposal that I heard once was they would make a train, an express train, kind of like KTX or something, but it would go from the two big cities in my state. And they're about 50 miles apart. How much is 50 miles in kilometers? 50 miles. So that would be about like 80 kilometers, I think. Like 80 kilometers apart. So it not that far, but if you drive, it takes about an hour, and so it's a little bit could be uncomfortable, to drive an hour. But if you had a train, it would be really nice. It'd be good for students or people that don't have a lot of money, etc. So I wish they would carry through with that project, but the problems are, you know, actually we face a lot of corruption these days in the US in our government, and it seems like the one area that really suffers is things like public, transportation. It really seems like these days it's just, I mean, you can see on the news everything's just crumbling in America, and they don't take care of the public transportation systems and things like that, because everything is, I mean, it's basically for the richer people nowadays in America. So if you have a car, like, yeah, good, you're fine. But they don't consider about, the poor people or students, etc. So it's really unfortunate, but we don't really have, we don't carry through with those big projects anymore in America I think because of a lot of corruption, to be honest. And that's what's so refreshing about Korea, is that they seem like they are doing more things for the public than they are in America these days. So that's very nice. But I hope America will get its act together soon and come up with better engineering solutions. I think that they would, I think people would like that, but it's just, yeah, our government is too messed up right now. So maybe someday. Okay, let's move on. Okay, at this time, we will look at page 133 and we will read an article together called The World of Tomorrow. Pay special attention. We will come back to this essay later on. What will the world of the next generation look like? And the generation after that? Many people today are confident that technology is going to help solve some of the most challenging problems we have on Earth today, such as global warming and hunger. Other people are worried that while new technology may solve old problems, it may also create new ones. No technology is perfect. Each innovation has advantages and disadvantages. When we dream about the future, many of us like to think that we will be able to exit our garages and take to the skies in our own personal flying car. The advantages are obvious. This technology would allow total freedom of movement. We could fly at 480 kilometers per hour, avoiding traffic lights, busy roads, and speeding tickets. However, some people believe there will be problems with traffic control, and if the cars become popular, there is likely to be air traffic congestion. Another big problem is mechanical failure. What will happen if the cars break down? These are problems we must expect if flying cars become a reality. Three-dimensional printing is another new technology with exciting possibilities for the future. 3D printers are used to build an object with liquid plastic. They build the object layer by layer until it is complete. Car companies already use 3D printers to make life-size models of car parts, and medical companies use the technology to make artificial body parts, such as ears. Before long, it might be possible to see a product on a website and then download it to your 3D printer at home. As we move into the future, 3D printing will revolutionize the way we shop, the way we manufacture, and the way we treat sick people. The downside is that such equipment will be extremely expensive. Finally, imagine having your own Iron Man suit. Several companies are trying to build a practical robot exoskeleton. This is an electronic suit with robot arms and legs which follows the wearer's movements. Exoskeletons allow you to lift heavy objects, walk long distances, and even punch through walls. There are obvious military advantages for this technology, but there are also benefits for rescue workers or people with disabilities. The suit might help people walk again after disease or injury. However, one disadvantage at the moment is cost. Even a simple exoskeleton can cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. Another problem is battery life. A heavy suit like this needs a lot of power, and battery life is short. However, these problems will no doubt be solved as lightweight plastic suits become available. Looking ahead, it is not difficult to imagine a future when we will all be able to fly to work, print out a new pair of shoes or lift a car above our heads. Although there are some problems to solve before all of this is possible, we can certainly dream of a world where technology makes life easier and safer for millions of people. Okay, so why don't we have a look at some of the discussion questions on page 134. Okay, number 1, why is mechanical failure a possible problem in a flying car? Well, in my experience, when your car breaks down, what happens? So you're stuck by the side of the road. It's not that dangerous, right? Like, you can just pull your car over to the side of the road and then, call your insurance company, call a tow truck, call your dad, whoever, and they will come help you. But if you're in a flying car, you're gonna drop out of the air, right? I guess that would be a problem. Yeah. I thought this essay, personally, I thought was a little bit unrealistic. I don't see flying cars happening in the future. I think what will be more likely is probably self-driving cars are going to be coming up very quickly, maybe in the next 10 or 20 years. I feel like everyone's going to have a self-driving car. And I would be happy with that. But I don't think I would not like to have a flying car. I'm afraid of heights, and that sounds absolutely terrifying. Okay, so number 2, why will flying cars cause traffic congestion instead of reducing it? So you probably know traffic congestion is, at rush hour in Korea, like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. is rush hour. So all the cars get on the highway at the same time, and it causes congestion. So that causes cars to block the road. And then it takes forever to get through traffic because you're just stuck in traffic for hours. Flying cars, why would they cause traffic congestion? Well, I think flying is very, I'm not a pilot, so I don't know much about it, but I imagine that flying is very, a little bit complicated, right? If we have flying cars, then we have to have some kind of system. Like, there has to be, a roadway or something. You can't just fly through the air wherever you want, because then you'll get into a car accident. So I believe, I don't really see a difference. Like, you're either going to be flying or driving. So I think it would just cause the same amount of congestion. And you would have to have, places to land, places to take off. You'd have to have somebody directing you, like an air traffic controller. I just don't think it's a possibility even. It sounds totally like pie in the sky to me. I don't think that would happen, in my opinion. Okay, next one. What do you think could be some of the medical benefits of robot suits? Well, I mean, for people with disabilities, like people who can't walk, or people who want to play sports or something like that, I think that could be a benefit to those people. And also, in the book, it shows a picture of a man lifting heavy bags of rice. Workers could use it as well to kind of support themselves. So yeah, I think there could be medical benefits. I think it sounds like a good idea. Okay, next one. What could be some of the reasons robotic exoskeletons are expensive? These are such interesting questions today, but they're hard to answer. Robotic exoskeletons, why would they be expensive? Well, I just imagine that if you're making something like an exoskeleton, I think that it's going to be like really intricate. So I think the design of it is going to be really time consuming, and I think that will require a lot of engineering and very smart geniuses to make them. So I think if that is the case, I think we'll have to pay for that labor, and for the materials as well, because maybe the materials are also expensive. Yeah, that's my thinking. Okay, so why don't we move a little bit away from reading now and discussion, and let's talk about writing. So some of our writing things that we're going to learn today, we're going to learn how to write an introductory paragraph. So do you know where the introductory paragraph goes in your essay? It's usually the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. What do you think? It's actually the first. So your first paragraph will be the introductory paragraph. And it should have 3 parts. So it's going to have a hook. A hook is one. Background information is another part. And a thesis statement or topic sentence. So those are going to be your 3 parts. So let's look at these individually. Okay, so let's take a look at the hook. Have you ever been fishing before? So imagine you're fishing, and then what kind of materials do you need when you fish? You need a hook, right? To catch fish. So in this situation, we're going to catch people's minds. We're going to fish for people, right? So the purpose of a hook is to get the readers interested in the topic, so he or she will want to continue on reading. And a hook, there's some options for a hook. So a hook could be a statement, it could be a definition of a word, it could be a question, it could be a fact or a statistic, or it could be a quotation. So those are some kind of openers that will get people's attention. Okay, the first one, we have a couple of examples here. So the first example is in 2014, Americans spent 6.9 billion hours sitting in traffic. Imagine what we could do with all that time if we did not need to commute. So when you read that, you're instantly thinking about that time you got stuck in traffic and how much time that you wasted. And so then it's kind of personalized to you, and then you think about, oh yeah, what can I do to learn more? So then you would want to continue to read. So that's the purpose of the hook. Okay, the next example of a hook is many nations are running out of water. However, a company has invented a machine that turns water from the air into water you can drink. So immediately you think about, some problem or situation, and we want to solve that problem. And instead of just, immediately getting into the information, trying to personalize it and connect it to the reader and to make them interested in your topic. Okay, the next part of the introduction that we will talk about is the background information. And background information helps the readers understand the essay and can include an explanation of words or phrases, historical information, data and statistics, or a general explanation of the topic. So just, some kind of background information so that the reader understands what you're going to be talking about. Okay, here's an example. This is an electronic suit with robot arms and legs which follows the wearer's movement. So if it's going to be an essay about an invention, then we have background information about this particular invention, which is apparently a robot suit. Okay, and then let's talk about the third part, which is the thesis statement. And the thesis statement usually is the last sentence of the introduction paragraph. So it comes at the bottom of the introduction paragraph. And it will give a preview of the essay. So it's basically setting the tone of the essay, letting the reader know what you're going to be talking about in your essay. And it also has a topic and a point of view. So point of view, not necessarily an opinion, but kind of a perspective and getting into a little bit of your opinion. Okay, so here's an example. Flying cars may reduce congestion on the ground, but they may create additional problems such as congestion in the air and pollution. Okay, after reading this, I feel like we're probably going to discuss some of the problems of flying cars. So I think that I can infer that the essay is going to be about some problems about flying cars. And I believe, probably it seems a little bit more negative than positive to me because there's more problems than there are advantages. Okay, so this thesis statement informs the reader that the topic flying cars will be followed by both advantages and disadvantages of flying cars. Okay, so let's take a look at a real example, okay? Okay, let's take a look at page 137. And we're going to talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of these technologies in that essay. Okay, so let's go back to page 133 again. Do you remember what some of the advantages are? Okay, let's start with the flying car. Okay, what are some advantages of having a flying car? So in the book, it says that if we have a flying car, we could fly at 480 kilometers per hour. So the advantage is we can go 480 kilometers per hour. That sounds good. You can get to work really fast. So you'll never be late again. Okay, so that was one advantage. What was another advantage? So let's look back at our book on page 133. Another advantage, freedom of movement. Freedom of movement. Freedom of movement. Okay, according to this essay, some of the advantages are going 480 kilometers per hour and freedom of movement. Okay, those sound pretty good to me. Okay, what about some disadvantages? And we can see a keyword here. It says however, so that usually is going to give you a clue that we're looking at some disadvantages. However, some people believe there will be problems with traffic control. Okay, so a disadvantage would be traffic control. So if you can imagine, there's probably not going to be stop signs in the sky. I'm not sure how they would manage that. So there might be some problems with controlling traffic. So how do we know people aren't going to crash into each other? Okay. All right, what is another disadvantage? Mechanical failure. If your car breaks down, you're going to fall out of the sky. So mechanical failure. So if you have any problem with your car breaking down, you're basically dead. I mean, I don't know how are you going to survive that? So that's a big problem. Okay, let's move on to 3D printing. 3D printing. Okay, so what does the book say? The book says that Okay, it gives you kind of a background. Um, so we can make life-size models of car parts. Okay, so for example, if one of your car parts breaks down, you can have life-size model of car parts, etc. So if something, if you need a car part or you need something for your computer or something like that, you could print it off of a 3D printer maybe. Okay, and also we can make artificial body parts. Artificial body parts. Artificial body parts. So if someone needs like a leg or something like that, they could print it off the 3D printer and they'd have a leg. So yeah, good advantage there, especially for people who might live in rural areas or isolated areas where there's not a lot of access to some medical materials. Yes, and also we could just order stuff online and print it off. So we can make stuff at home. So you can just make products at home and print them off. There weren't many disadvantages, were there? I only saw maybe one disadvantage. The downside was it would be extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. So buying those 3D printers is just too expensive. Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about the robot suit. Now this is interesting. Are you guys fans of Iron Man? I love Iron Man. Yeah, so what about having your own Iron Man suit? What do you think? Good or bad? I think I'm not ready for that technology. That sounds too much for me. So in the book, it says that you can lift heavy objects. Maybe if you have a job where you have to carry heavy things like boxes, etc., that could be really useful for those people, I think. Then they wouldn't have to injure themselves or hurt their back or muscles by lifting heavy items. So I think for workers, that could be really good. Yes, and it says walk long distances. Walk long distances, okay. I'm not sure why you would need a suit to do that, but I think you could just use your legs, but it's interesting. And even punch through walls. You could punch through walls. I don't know why you'd need to punch through walls either. That's kind of interesting. What is the advantage of punching through a wall? I'm not sure, but maybe if you're in a war situation or a military situation, maybe that would, you're a policeman, policewoman, not exactly sure. And it also says it could be used for people with disabilities. Disabilities, rescue workers, military things. So it could be used for those. Now, what about the disadvantage? So the disadvantages are, again, the cost. It's extremely expensive, so we cannot afford, a common person cannot afford to buy an Iron Man suit. And it also says that the battery life is not very good. So battery problems. Okay, so those are some of the advantages and disadvantages. And so when you write your essay, you might want to address both the advantages and disadvantages to have a well rounded essay. Okay? All right, we are going to look back at page 133 once more. The first thing we're going to ask is, where is the hook and does it get your attention? Okay, so let's look back at that introductory paragraph on page 133. Can you find a hook here? So remember, a hook can be a question, a statistic, etc. So something that gets your reader's attention. Where might the hook be here? Can anyone see it? So the hook is actually going to be this. What will the world of the next generation look like? Okay, so this is our hook. All right, what will the world of the next generation look like? So when you write your essay, when you write your introductory section, make sure that you have a hook to get your reader's attention. And one simple device is just asking a question. So that could be a hook. So what will the world of the next generation look like, and the generation after that? Okay, so that is going to be your hook. Okay, let's look at some other parts. Okay, next question, and I've written it up here on the board in case you forget what it is. What kind of background information does the paragraph include? Okay, let's go back again and look at page 133 and let's answer this question. Okay, so from what I'm understanding in the book, we should, sandwich that background information somewhere between our hook and our thesis. Remember that the thesis comes at the end. So I would say that this information here is going to be our background information. So many people today are confident that technology is going to help solve some of the most challenging problems we have on Earth today, such as global warming and hunger. Other people are worried that while new technology may solve old problems, it may also create new ones. So this is going to be our background information. To summarize this information, or to paraphrase, there are two sides. Some people think technology is going to help, and some people think that technology will create new problems. Okay, so that is our background information. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the thesis statement. And you can see my beautiful, fabulous handwriting here. I've written some of the questions on the board so we don't forget. So according to the thesis statement, first, what is the topic of the article? What is the point of view? And how many paragraphs will the body of the article probably have? What will each paragraph probably discuss? So we don't know exactly, but we might be able to guess. Okay, let's go back and look and see if there are any clues provided. Okay, so we're back to page 133. Where's the thesis? Were you able to find the thesis? Okay, the thesis should be: no technology is perfect. Each innovation has advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so that should be the thesis statement. Okay, we have read the paragraph, so we know what it's about, but let's pretend like we've never read this. So what is the point of view? The point of view is that this person is explaining that no technology is perfect. So there are some advantages and disadvantages. Okay. How many paragraphs do you think there will be? How many paragraphs do you think there will be? Well, in a classic academic essay, there would, usually you would have 5 paragraphs. So you would have the introduction, you would have 3 body paragraphs, and 1 conclusion. So I would say that there would probably be 3 body paragraphs. If I had to guess, I would say there will be at least 2 or 3 body paragraphs. So what will each paragraph probably discuss? I think that each paragraph will probably have an example of one type of technology, and it will break down the advantage and the disadvantage of that technology. For example, a smartphone. What is the advantage? What is the disadvantage? Okay, the advantage is I can check my email anytime. The disadvantage is I'm not paying attention to the people around me, like my family or my loved ones. Okay, so I could break it down one by one, each technology. Okay, so that's what I think they are telling us that this essay will be about. Okay, so this is the thesis statement. No technology is perfect, and each innovation has advantages and disadvantages. So when you write your essays, you should follow this format. Let's review the format one more time. So just to review, we need a hook, some background information, and a thesis. So if you want to get an A+ paper, just follow those instructions, okay? Okay, I would like to, at this time, why don't we kind of rest our brains and think about some conversation starters. Okay, so what are some of the best and most useful inventions of mankind in the 20th and 21st centuries? Well, I think, nowadays I've been thinking a lot about medical inventions, and I think, things like vaccines, penicillins, etc. I think that these have been really great for people around the world, because just like what we were talking about with the Panama Canal, I think that when people are healthy, we can get a lot more done in our society. So if people are sick or they can't work, our society is not really as great as it could be. So I think, a lot of the most useful inventions are probably more about medical situations. What famous inventors do you know? Thomas Edison always comes to mind for me. He invented a lot of things. He was the first. I think he was the first or second person to put electricity in people's homes. So that was one of his great accomplishments. Without him, we probably wouldn't have electricity in our houses. So that was great. Do I know anything about the inventions of Leonardo da Vinci? Leonardo da Vinci, from what I know, he might have invented some kind of flying machine, I believe. That's the only thing I think I am aware of. I don't know I wonder if it actually flew, though, or if it was just a prototype, or was it a real thing? But you've seen a lot of movies and animations where they've tried to recreate Leonardo's flying machine. How did the invention of television change people's life? television. I guess it just made, a different form of entertainment because before television, people listened to the radio, and they got most of their news and information from the radio. So then I think television just basically kind of replaced radio for entertainment and news, and then people started getting a lot of their information from the TV. Um, is television what is the role of television in your life? Um, it's hard to say. I think when I was younger, because I'm quite a bit older than you guys, so when I was younger, like we didn't have internet in our house. Nobody had internet in their house. So television was like how we entertained ourselves. So we watched a lot of like cartoons and animations, and yeah, we watched quite a bit of TV growing up. Um, I don't really think I don't know if it affected me or not, but I think it's just there. I think I don't really see it as like life changing. But as a parent, like I have two kids, and I would say like television is really useful when you have children, because if you need to go to the bathroom or you need to take a shower, you can always turn on the TV and they will maybe watch it for a few minutes. So it is very useful when you have children to entertain your children. How often do I watch it? For myself, I sometimes I watch the news, and that's like I watch CNN a little bit here and there, or BBC. But I'm not a big TV person. I'm more addicted to like YouTube and things like that. So, yeah, I'm not like a huge TV person, but I like it. Yeah, it's okay for me. um, when did I buy or get my first mobile phone? Trying to remember, how old was I? I was probably 21, I would say 2021. Um, yeah, that was a while ago. That it was a Kyocera. I don't know if you remember Kyocera, but that was the popular phone of my time. So yes, I had a Kyocera phone, and you couldn't really do anything. It's not like the phones today, obviously, the smartphone. It was just a phone, and I think you could text maybe. But in America, voicemail is very big. So you could leave a voicemail, or yeah, I believe you could text, but I don't really remember well. Um, do you think you can live without your mobile, or is it now an important part of your life? Sadly, probably not. And I grew up in kind of a funny time period, because when I grew up, we didn't have these technologies, but they kind of came around when I was becoming like an adult. So it's kind of a strange situation to be in, because I long for that time again, because I do remember a time when we didn't have mobile phones. Um, and I lived through that time, and I think it was better in some ways, because I think people were a little bit more creative, and people read books more, or they read the newspaper more. And then like nowadays, it's like we don't really read as much, and I never had a problem of like connecting with my friends. I could always, that was never really an issue. So I don't know. I miss that time. I really do, because it was a lot simpler, and I felt like I had better relationships with people, and I think I was more creative and smarter. So I think I was more like interested in reading books and studying things, and creating things. But now it's like my entertainment is like my phone, right? I get entertainment through my phone. I don't need to read a book or I got a lot lazier since I had a phone. So I don't know if I could. I don't think I could live without it now. It'd be too hard because, is if you have a family or something, you need to be connected. So it's like you can't really like turn off your phone anymore. Um, am I anxious when my battery is flat or I am out of reach? Am I? I think it depends on the situation. Like, if I'm working, I mean, everybody has to understand, like, I'm working, I can't answer my phone right now if I'm, like, in church or something like that. I think there's, like, it's okay to turn off your phone once in a while. Like, there are situations where you shouldn't have your phone. So I don't feel anxious with that, but if I forgot my phone or if I lost my phone, I think I would feel really anxious. And if my battery was dead, I don't think I would feel anxious. I would just go charge it. So it wouldn't really make me anxious. Um, but yeah, it's different when you have kids because sometimes you do worry. You're like, oh, I better have my phone on me in case anything happens. I want to know, how my kids are doing, etc. Um, what do scientists say about the influence of mobile phones on our health? Hmm. From what I understood, like, um, I don't think they cause health problems, but it could cause like secondary health problems, I think. Like, um, it could be a danger, like if you're walking down the road and you're looking at your phone. Um, because, I used to work at a different university and there was a girl, and this was quite a few years ago. This was probably almost 10 years ago or 9 or 10 years ago. And there was a student, and in this university, they had a shuttle bus, and the girl was looking at her mobile phone, and the shuttle bus, and I think she had earphones in as well, and the shuttle bus ran her over and she died. So that was a very big tragedy at that university, and it was a very shocking thing to happen. So, you should never, like if you're on a busy street or something, you should never, and I'm guilty of it too, but you should never look down at your phone while you're walking because you could get run over by a car. Because it did happen in my situation. Yeah, a place I worked, somebody got ran over by a car. Yeah, by not even a car, a shuttle bus. So the wheels were quite big, and it was a really gory accident. So be very careful when you're using your mobile phone and walking or driving. So you don't want to do that. A lot of, especially with young people, because they very think they're invincible, and yeah, don't do that. It's really bad. That's my mom speech for today. So I think that's the problem with mobile phones, and I also think that mentally, like, it does affect us. So I think, like I said, I'm not reading as much as I used to when I was younger, and I feel like I'm less intellectual than I was. I feel like I'm getting a little bit stupider because of my phone. So yeah, we need to be careful about that. Do I use the internet? Of course I use the internet. Like, what? Of course. Who doesn't use the internet? What internet services do you use? I don't know. I use everything. So I use, YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. I try to stay off of the social media a little bit, but it definitely sucks you in. So I stay away from like the TikTok. Somebody told me about TikTok, and I was like, I don't need any more social media. Do not tell me about it. I don't want to hear about it. Nothing. So I do, because I love YouTube. I love it so much, and it's terrible. So I need an intervention, I think. Do I feel any addiction to the internet? Yeah, I think I do. How much time do I spend on a month? Well, so if I don't even want to think about it because it would probably be scary. Because also I use the internet for my work too. So probably a lot of my time is on the internet. Probably like 50% of my time. Yeah, it's not good. So how has the internet changed things is communication, correspondence, access to information. Oh, yeah, a lot. So, like I said, when I was younger, we didn't really have internet. And so I used to write letters to my friend, like handwritten letters, and I would put them in the, and I'd draw little pictures or put stickers on them, and I would send them to my friends, and they would send letters back. So we would actually write letters to each other. It was quite common back then to have like a pen pal. Yeah, I'd write my friends a lot. And nowadays it's like email. You write people emails, or you just, you chat. I just more like chatting nowadays. I don't really write emails to my friends. Um, yeah, so what about access to information? Yeah, when I was a kid, when you go to the library, you'd have the card catalog, and you'd have to look through the cards to find a book. So we didn't even have like internet in the library. You had to do everything manually. Like you had to look through the cards to find the book that you wanted. And it was really, yeah, it was okay. I mean, it was kind of annoying, but not like too bad. But now with the internet, you don't have to do any of that stuff. Like you can just look something up online. You don't have to go to the library and look through the card catalog and everything. So that has changed a lot. Yeah. Do I think the internet is good or evil? Good or evil? I don't think it's evil. I would say just neutral. Like the internet's just a tool, so it could be used for bad purposes or it could be used for good purposes. But I don't think that it's inherently evil or inherently good. Um, it just depends on what people are using it for. So there are a lot of bad things going on the internet, but they would be happening anyway. I don't think that the internet would uh, increase that. I don't think. But that's just my opinion. So I, because like I said, I grew up in a time without internet, and bad things happened all the time. It wasn't like, nothing really is different about that. So I would say it's just a tool like any other tool, and it could be used for good or for bad. It's just a way to get information around. It's not really, I mean, yeah. So yeah, so there have been like some scandals with the internet. Like if you think about the Telegram scandal and everything, but I think those people are always going to find a way to do something bad. So I don't think the internet is like the reason for that happening. I think it's just they're just using that tool to do something bad. So I don't think the internet is necessarily evil or good. I think it's just a tool basically. But it should be monitored and controlled, like regulated like anything else. Within reason, I think. I think people also have a right to free speech, but if they're hurting other people, then that's not really good. So that's it for today. And on that note, let's talk about the test a little bit later. And I know you're probably all anxious to get your scores, but why don't we wait until after the test is finished? So maybe around the 6th or so, May 6th, I will try to release the scores to you so you will know what your score was for the test. Okay? All right. So I will see you later, and take care.